they say people would rather be understood than agreed with. Watch how somebody softens when they think you're trying to understand how they think. And that's a good rule for a marriage, man. You got to be able to at least explain why your spouse thinks that way. You don't have to agree with it. And if you think it's stupid, keep it to yourself. But just so they know you're trying to figure it out. It's my third night in Nebraska. Been here many times. Just got one thing I want to say. I love Nebraska. You guys in Texas, man. Yeah. This is where the American spirit is still alive. It's beautiful, man. I live in a profession that's far left. So to see beautiful people, faith-filled people, come to stuff like this, give up a night, beautiful night, perfect temperature, could be doing anything else. You show up here, tells me you're faith-filled, caring people. Either that or you got no life whatsoever. My wife is a convert to the Catholic faith, and she struggled with confession. She understood the thinking, but she couldn't get it through her head that when you go to confession, you got to confess your own sins, not your husband's. Bless me, Father, Ray has sinned. She made her first confession when she was 39. Now, gentlemen, you read these marriage books, and they tell you the same thing. Be on your knees for your wife. Okay, fine. I'll do that. She goes into confessional, I get on my knees. And I stay there the whole time she's in that confessional. So I took a week off from work. She came out. Honey, what do you think? You're right, Ray. I feel clean. That's good. So what'd you tell Father? I'm not telling you that. You can tell me. You're not bound by the seal. I'm not telling you, Ray. I figured it out. If you want to know what your spouse or your kid tells Father in the confessional, you kind of got to go in the back door. So, honey, what did you get for penance? If you know what they got for penance, you can kind of reason backward to how rot gut they were. She said, I guess I could tell you that. I got a rosary. Rosary? It's not bad for 40 years of pagan muck. She said, with the stations of the cross at every bead. Oh, kind of wish you'd have told me that before I married you. I still got to kiss you? Then she asked me, okay, Ray, what do you usually get for penance? Me? Most of the time? Half a sign of the cross. Sometimes a quarter. That's hardly enough time to levitate. Some years ago, Time magazine had a headline. Men and women are different. Only Time magazine could think this is a revelation. We are wired different. We're radically different in so many ways. One of the big ways is women are more verbal than men. They talk earlier. They talk better. They talk longer. That's why if a mom drifts into a discipline trap, it's usually something along these lines. Talk, talk, nag, nag, repeat, repeat, negotiate. Talk, talk, nag, nag, repeat, repeat, negotiate. If a dad drifts into a discipline trap, usually something along these lines. Tolerate, tolerate, oblivious, oblivious, ignore, ignore, kill! Tolerate, tolerate, oblivious, oblivious. You see this right out of the chute. Little girls, I have 10 children, 5 boys and 5 estrogen Americans. First day of kindergarten. I asked my son, Andrew, how was school today, buddy? Okay. Well, that's good. So what'd you do? Nothing. Or ladies, if you have a really communicative male, stuff. What is the name of the lady who stands in front of you and talks for 6 hours? Stands in front of me and talks for 6 hours. I don't think she told anybody, Dad. Joshua says he got one called Teacher. I'll ask her if they're related. First day of kindergarten, I asked my daughter, Hannah, how was school today, baby? Well, okay, Daddy. My teacher's name is Mrs. Bartley. Mrs. Bartley has 3 children, Jessica, Jason, and Ashley. I know their birthdays, favorite colors, middle names. I'll tell you those later. We did 12 activities. The pumpkin cutting activity started at 8:07. Is that a stupid time or what? Ashley was my best friend till 8:30. Then she got mad at me. I don't even know what I did. But Jessica told Tiffany I could be her forever friend till tomorrow at 9 o'clock. Now, Mrs. Bartley has this little brown mark right here. You can't tell it's there unless she goes over to the window and she bends down kind of like this. If she does, the sun comes through the Venetian blinds, off the clock, reflects through her bifocals, forms a prism on the window with a brown dot in it. Daddy, I don't think she knew it was there, so I figure somebody better tell her. They both had the same teacher. Women are better communicators than men. They do. It's easier for women. They talk easier. They notice things. They notice detail. They notice everything about everybody at all times, forever. To be used upon men who get to a point in our lives, if we notice our wives are out there, we get extra credit. And this has implications for marriages. My wife one time, when we were in the evangelical world, we were in a Bible study, and a whole bunch of ladies were calling her in a row. And she got off the phone, and she said, you know what I think? I think those ladies want to be married to a communicative woman who can open jars. You ladies are just better at this. You truly are. And you know, you have certain tag phrases. I think we need to talk. That means you're going to tell me everything that's wrong with me. You look at a woman's diary. Woman's diary says something like this. Today was a very difficult day. I feel that my husband was so distant. I don't know what it was. He seemed preoccupied. I asked him, is it me? He said, no, it's not you. Don't worry about it. I said, but you just seem so different. No, I'm fine. And I kept asking him, and he just didn't seem to want to know. And I called my girlfriend, and we talked about it. And she said the same thing happened with her husband. And I don't know what to do. And I cried, and I went to bed. The husband's diary. A 2-foot putt. Who in the hell misses a 2-foot putt? Now, gentlemen, I'm not going to make excuses for us. Just because it doesn't come as easy to us doesn't mean we can't do it. Clients will walk into my office, because I do marriage counseling. And they'll come into my office, and generally, the ladies know exactly what they need to work on. What's going on, what's happening. And I go to the guy, so what do you think? I thought everything was pretty good. And she'll say something like, I just wish he would stick up for me more with his mother. And I'll say, do you know why she thinks that? Well, I guess I could take a guess, but I don't really know. Have you asked her? I suppose I could. How long have you been married? 34 years. Did you ever meet somebody, you don't know them, first time. Talk to them for half an hour, you walk away, and you like them immediately. And you think to yourself, what an easy person to talk to. Really like them. And you didn't know what it was till you thought about it. And then you realized, you know what? They asked all about me. The whole time, they were asking about me. I didn't ask anything about them. They kept me talking about my kids, my family, my job, my religion. So gentlemen, number one piece of advice. You don't have to agree with your wife. You can think it's ridiculous the way she's looking at it. Just ask her. Just ask her why she thinks that way. Why do you think I don't stick up for you with your mother? I have told you 47 times. I know. Tell me again. I want to hear it again because I need to hear it again. Just find out. You know, they say people would rather be understood than agreed with. Watch how somebody softens when they think you're trying to understand how they think. Why do you think I'm not affectionate? Tell me what it is about me that you think I'm not that affectionate. Now that may shake a person up because they're not used to you asking, and they figure you're going to argue. You're not there to argue. You are not there to argue. You know, I'm a shrink. I've been shrinking for over 40 years. I used to be like 6'9". Now people come into my office and they tell me the most nonsense, rot gut, dumb stuff you could want to hear. And what would happen if I said, "What are you, nuts? What is wrong with you? What kind of stupid thinking is that?" I wouldn't have a whole lot of clients. I got to sit there and I got to get inside their head. I got to figure why they think the way they think. And that's a good rule for a marriage, man. You got to be able to at least explain why your spouse thinks that way. You don't have to agree with it. And if you think it's stupid, keep it to yourself. But just so they know you're trying to figure it out. You know what I hear from a lot of the ladies, gentlemen? I'm hearing that they are the main disciplinarians in their home. They set the rules, they set the structure, they set the discipline, and Disney Dad over here, Mr. Good Time, Mr. Easygoing, laid back, not notice nothing, oblivious. Mr. Honey, I was that way when I was a kid. I think I turned out pretty good. And the women are thinking, let's gather the relatives and vote. More and more women are telling me they're setting the standards, they're setting the rules. Guys, we're along for the ride. Do what your mother says. I do what your mother says. Everybody does what your mother says. Gentlemen, protect that woman. There's not a guy in here that would let another human being talk to his wife the way that kid or grandkid is talking to his wife, on maybe a regular basis. Next time you hear her locked into a battle with a kid, don't sit in the Barca lounger in the other room thinking to yourself, I close my eyes, I can't tell which one of them's a 9-year-old. Get in there, protect that woman. That's not just your mom you're talking to that way, or grandma. That's my wife. You go have a seat. I'm going to see what she wants me to do about this. You can't protect without a lawyer, but... And then, I'm going to do more. I'll tell you what, gentlemen, you protect that woman like that. She knows you got her back like that. She's going to feel very affectionate toward you. Sometimes I'll give my boys a couple bucks. Go give your mother grief. I'll be right down. That worked pretty good till she found out I was only giving them a couple bucks. Oh, you'll just get a kiss on the cheek for that. Now we struggle. I don't want to sit up. You come up here and you start giving talks about marriage. And everybody thinks, oh, you got a great marriage. No, my wife and I have struggled. We really have. It started out when we were courting. She thought I wasn't committing to myself. She thought I was dragging my feet. So 2 years into the relationship, she gives me an ultimatum. You either tell me your name or it's over. And you know, you read these marriage books and they all kind of tell you the same thing. Got to have date nights, got to have date nights. But I will tell you a little qualifier on these date nights. They don't work. If in fact, I'm being serious now, if in fact, in between the date nights, you don't talk well to each other. Date nights don't work. When in between the date nights, there's a lot of criticism, a lot of scolding, a lot of snarky remarks, a lot of looks. No, they don't work. So my wife and I decided, okay, date nights. Tuesday, Friday. Tuesday I go out with the boys. Friday she goes out with the boys. But you got to do special things. You got to remember the special occasions. I did. I read this book that said, okay, very important to relive your first date. Like 25th anniversary, relive your first date. So I thought, okay, this is good. So on our first date, we went horseback riding. I thought, okay, 25 years, we were horseback riding. It was great. We had a great time. Hour and a half. And then I ran out of quarters. We were out to eat the other night for our anniversary. My wife says, why don't you do something special, Ray? I'm getting tired of the Golden Corral. Why don't you take me someplace where they cook the food in front of you? Oh, okay. So I took her to Subway. Then we went to a really fancy place. We're sitting there, and there's a lady kind of in another booth, and she'd been drinking pretty heavy. She looked like she'd been drinking pretty heavy. And I saw her, and I said, I recognize her. I dated her in college. I broke up with her, and they told me she started drinking right after I broke up with her, and well, obviously she hasn't stopped. And my wife says, it's hard to believe somebody could celebrate that long. I'll ask my clients, when was the last time one of you apologized? Sometimes I hear this. Oh, I remember. Our daughter was in kindergarten. Well, how old's your daughter now? Oh, she's a lawyer. Oh, yeah, I remember. Our wedding rehearsal dinner, I spilled coffee on her. I said, hey, sorry about that. And you find out very quickly that the apologies are not real quick in this relationship. And why is that? Now, a lot of times the spouse will say to me, I'm the one who apologizes. I do 95% of the apologies, if not more. I'm the only one who apologizes. And I said, why do you think that is? Well, my spouse thinks he or she is never wrong. They're superior. I said, you got it totally wrong. Somebody who doesn't apologize is insecure. They can't admit they're wrong. If they admit they're wrong, it's like, I'm a loser. If they admit they're wrong, it's like, well, I'm always wrong and you're always right. I had a lady call me in a radio show. She said, I've been married 52 years and my husband has never apologized one time in 52 years. Now, first of all, I had a hard time believing that, but you can't challenge your clients. Well, callers, I challenge my clients. I said, you think he thinks he's superior to you? Oh, of course he does. Absolutely. He thinks he's never, ever wrong. I'm always the one who's wrong. I go, you got it wrong. I went, you're wrong. I said, he doesn't apologize because he can't. Now, how's that supposed to make you feel any better? It doesn't change the apology frequency, but you know what it does? You don't take it as personal. You realize that a person who can't apologize, the problem is somewhere in them, and it ain't you. It's in them. And I will say this, if you have a person who delicately apologizes, maybe every so often, here's the best thing you can do to keep that from happening with any more frequency. Here's what you do. An apology is just words. You know, if you really meant it, you change. Apologies don't make everything right. Okay, those of you who go to confession, how would you like it if you've gone to Father here in confession for the last 10 years? And Father says, you know, you've been expressing remorse for these sins for 10 years. These are the same sins. I'm not going to give you absolution. Because if you were truly sorry, you'd change. You want to hear something like that? Father, did you ever tell anybody like that? See, we don't want to hear that. But yet to somebody else, if they do the same scrappy stuff, and they do apologize, whether they're legitimate or whether they ain't, we throw it back in their face. I'm telling you, you're guaranteed you're not going to get too many of them. You don't want it thrown back in the face. Here's the question. What is your personal apology percentage? You know what that is? That is how wrong you have to think you are. Now keep in mind, we're subjective, we're not objective. Get a poll of 100 objective observers, they're going to think we're a lot wronger than we think we are. But how wrong do you have to think you are before you apologize? She badgered me for 18 minutes. I didn't say a word. I just sat there. Finally, I couldn't take anymore. And I turned and I cussed. Now, in your mind, you were 8% wrong. She was 92. You going to apologize for your 8? You did cuss, you know. I don't have to, why should I have to apologize for my 8? She badgered me for 18 minutes. I wouldn't have done that had she not harassed me that long. No, a personal apology percentage is I apologize for whatever percentage I'm wrong, whatever it is. If it's 2% or 6%, most people don't apologize till they're more than 50% wrong. But Christians are supposed to apologize whenever you did something wrong. Oh, fine. Okay, I'll apologize, and that'll just keep him going. He'll just think, oh, he's never wrong, and I'm always the one who apologizes because I recognize how wrong I am. No, that's not how most people respond. Most people, if you want to soften them up, they see that you're going to apologize for whatever you did wrong. There's a pretty good chance they might say, well, you know what? I shouldn't have been on you like that. I'm sorry, too. Apologies are one of those things that are very hard to say because you overinterpret them. You know that? What's it mean to you? Well, it means I'm a loser. It means I always screw up. It means you're much holier than me. It doesn't mean any of that. It simply means at that point in time, for that place, I did X. That's all it means. Now, if the other person thinks it means more, you can't do anything about that. You're just apologizing for what you did. You know, I get some really nasty email, and it's hard to believe. I'm kind of like the Howard Stern of Catholic media, you know. A lot of the sweet people on Catholic media, they're so supportive and kind. Oh my, yes, that must be so frustrating when she does that. That must hurt. That must really hurt. Me, I go, you didn't say that, did you? Why would you say that knowing what she's like? And so I get some pretty nasty stuff. And I generally don't respond, but the times I do, I apologize. Even if I think they misunderstood what I said, I write back. And you know what they do? They generally write back and say, maybe I misunderstood. Maybe I wasn't listening close. Maybe I was thinking you were somebody else. They soften. Apologies are one of those things that are harder to say than to do. And here's what I mean. You ever notice how easy it is to talk a nice game? Hey, I tell you what, I was driving by your house there, and I noticed, man, you got a ton of leaves in those front flower beds. That's a lot of work. Give me a call. Give me a call. I got a lot of Saturdays free. I'll come over. I'll help you out. How long's it been since we gotten together, huh? It's been a while, hasn't it? Let's go to breakfast, all right? Let's go to breakfast. I'll tell you what, we'll get together for breakfast. Just give me a call. So he calls. She calls. It is easier to talk nice than it is to do nice, except for apologies. I was driving by a florist. I thought, okay, I'll get my wife a flower, you know? And it's really kind of neat because somebody somewhere, and I don't know who did this, it wasn't florists, somebody somewhere said, one rose is more romantic than a bouquet. That's cool, because it's like $80 cheaper, too. So I went and I said, could I have one rose, please? And the girl behind her, she's 22 years old or something, she says, what'd you do? I said, well, what do you mean what'd I do? She said, well, guys come in here, and if it's not a holiday or a birthday or something, and they're buying a flower, they're saying, I'm sorry. They did something wrong. No. Now okay. That may be the case for these young, immature guys, but my wife and I, look, we've been married a long time, 17 happy years. We've been married 41, but 17 happy years. And when I say that, she goes, oh, you got 17. I said, that's not going to happen in our marriage. I mean, we're very transparent. We communicate this. She's not going to misinterpret this. So I go home, had the flower behind my back. You know, kind of like a little kid who goes in the field and gets a bunch of stinkweeds and puts them behind her back, and they want to give them to grandma or mom. You know, they come up. It's like this, you know. And then they hold it out like this, and you got to be all excited and think it's wonderful. You can't wait to throw it away. So I had it behind my back. I said, honey. And she said, what'd you do? And I said, you ever work for a florist? Yeah, it's an interesting thing about apologies. I may not say I'm sorry, but she knows. Just by the way I act, I'm sorry. I mean, I'm being nicer, being a lot nicer, you know. It's kind of like, I helped her out. I don't normally help her out. And I came in and I said, honey, you want me to help you fold that laundry? See, that's kind of the way you say I'm sorry instead of actually having to go. Those of you who know physics, you've probably heard something called the law of entropy. Nodding your head. You know what the law of entropy is? The law of entropy says everything decays. Given enough time, everything decays. Your bodies are going to rot. Rust, iron rusts. Given enough time, the sun's going to burn out. Universe will die a heat death. There's something I've coined the law of social entropy. It says this: we incline towards sloppiness in a relationship. We don't give the compliments like we used to. Trying to win her over, I gave a lot of compliments, you know. I was trying to win her over. I think if you took the compliments I did the first year, the other 42 years, it wouldn't even equal those. I don't use manners like I used to. I don't say please. I don't say thank you anywhere near as much. You ever see somebody out in public with a little 5-year-old? You know, my kids at one point were 12, 11, 10, 10, 9, 7, 4, 3, 2 baby. My kids are all adopted. Neat thing about adoption, agencies don't tell you this. You adopt in December, you still get the tax deduction for the whole year. You know, they pay for themselves that first year, then you start to fall behind. Now, my wife and I have gotten in this little tiff, and ladies, I believe you'll agree with me. First of all, my wife does not work for a living. I don't know what she does. You quote me, I'll deny I was even here. When the kids were little, she'd take them to a grocery store. I'd go. If I was heavily sedated, I would go. Had to see it strung out behind her like ducks, you know, hands at their sides. Not allowed to touch anything. They would not deviate 6 inches either way out of a straight line the whole 2 hours they were in there. No, they wouldn't. Leg irons wouldn't let them. I got 3 white kids, 2 Hispanic kids, 2 biracial kids, 3 black kids. People would look at my wife. Some of them were pretty bold. Some kind of club or something? Some of them wouldn't say a whole lot, but I could read their eyes. That major dork don't realize them ain't all his. I mean, you see this in parenting, don't you? The first kid, dual videotape of every burp and bowel movement he ever had. Last kid, 1 snapshot at the birth, 1 at the wedding rehearsal dinner. Dad, how come I got no pictures? That's not true, son. Your sister did a popsicle stick sketch of you in kindergarten. We kept it. Besides, you look like your sister. Use her pictures. Well, this happens in relationships, and they don't even have to be a bad relationship. You just get lazy. We don't use manners. We don't say please anywhere near as much as we used to. Hey, get me a cup of coffee, would you? I guess it sounds kind of nice. You asked, get me a cup of coffee, would you? With a question mark in it. But you didn't say please. You didn't say when the coffee was there, thank you. Do you thank your spouse for every meal that's in front of you? Father, you know, I saw a guy that said, I've been listening to his homilies for 8 years now. And I'll tell you, I can't remember any of them.
Can't either.
I saw the teleprompter Father has back there when he says his homilies. And a guy wrote back, and he said, you know, my wife has been cooking for me for 40 years, and I don't remember a single one of those meals. But they kept me alive. They kept me healthy. Same thing with him. You may not remember any one of those particular homilies except maybe a soundbite or two here and there. But for 8 years, that guy kept feeding you spiritually. Law of social entropy. You're out in public, got a 5-year-old grandson, 5-year-old child. Somebody hands this kid a cookie. Manners make you look very good out in public. That's why children don't use them. So you help her out. What do you say? And she looks at you like this is the first time in your life you've ever brought this concept up. What's the magic word? Now, being a veteran parent or a grandparent, you know how to create pain. You take these nails. You reach for some fleshy body part, and you start to squeeze. Say thank you. Ow! Hurting me. In a fit of parental resolve, you take what's left of the cookie, you hand it back to the person who gave it to her. Why? Well, she didn't say thank you. Well, why is that so important? She's only 5 years old. Because you instinctively realize what manners mean. They convey dignity. They convey respect. It's not just politeness. You see a little kid out in public, this kid could set fires and torture small barnyard animals. But if he says please and thank you, you go, what a nice little young man. We had a rule when we would go out with the 10 kids. We go to restaurants, and this was our rule. When the server came and you ordered, you had to say please. And when he or she came back and put the food in front of you, you had to say thank you. If not, we took your food. We set it aside, and you had to hope they came back. Now, the interesting thing is when you got 10 little narcs at the table. Dad, John didn't say thank you. He didn't, you know. Can I have his fries? So what I would do to the kids, I'd say, I want you to say please and thank you really loud. Because 50% of the time, there was an elderly couple sitting close who saw our kids, heard him say please and thank you, and we'd go to leave and the waitress would say, oh, your meal's been paid. Well, that's a shock. Why do we put this much effort into a 5-year-old, which I will tell you my experience has been a well-taught 5-year-old has better manners than some of us in our own marriage? Where's the please? Where's the thank you? Where's the compliments? It's not because you don't like the person. You just got lazy. The story's told of a guy who never said I love you to his wife. And the pastor said to him, you don't say I love you? He said, when we got married, on the day we got married, I told her I loved her. And if anything changes, I'll tell her. Kiss goodbye, touch hello, anything like that. All that stuff is just so potent. I have a book called Simple Steps to a Stronger Marriage, and I talk about these tiny little things you can do that can dramatically improve a marriage. A comedian said this, George Carlin. He said, don't sweat the petty things, and don't pet the sweaty things. I've noticed in marriages a lot, there are these tiny little irritants that have been around 10, 15, 20, 25 years, and they still bug you. They still take a toll on the marriage. Somebody will say to me, you know what I hate that he does? Do you know what I hate that he does? What's he do? Well, he does this. If you told him about it? Yeah, he doesn't care. He doesn't care. He's just going to do what he thinks. Really? Could it be just he's oblivious? No, it could be, but this bothers you, doesn't it? How long have you been married? 31 years. Are you still being bothered by this? After 31, is he a jerk? Oh no, he's a wonderful man. He's wonderful. He's a great daddy. So why Is this bothering you like this? You know the number one question I get as a shrink now? Will you tell me how to make somebody else be different? I have a heck of a time helping you to be different, and you just removed it one person. We got married, and I'm kind of a neatnik. And God is a tormenting practical joker. Because you can't be a neatnik when you got 10 kids under 12. Our place smelled like a landfill. Okay. But the first 3 years, we didn't have any kids. And I'm a neatnik, and I figure, well, my wife is not as neat as I am, but, you know, that's okay. She'll learn. She'll pick up from my good habits. So I noticed that she didn't close cupboards. Okay, well, I'll just point it out to her. We didn't live together or anything like that. So, you know, first week after the honeymoon, all these cupboards are open. Well, I'm a highly trained professional communicator, and I know how to use iMessages and win-win scenarios and active listening. So I figure I'll just combine all three of them, and then obviously she'll be putty in my hands, and she'll just start shutting the cupboards. It's easy enough, that's solved. And immediately she agreed, oh, you're right, Ray, that's a bad habit I developed when I live alone. I'll take care of it. Good, okay. I'm good. A couple days later, these cupboards are back open again. I'm thinking, well, you know, come on, I'm not going to get on her for this. You need a little bit of instruction here. I'll just kind of, you know, train her. I'll give her some M&Ms or something. I said, honey, cupboards are open there. Oh, yeah, gosh, Ray, I know it's a habit. I'll take care of it. So she closed it. A couple of days later, they're all back open. So I figure, picture's worth 1,000 words. 7 out of 12 cupboards were open. So I opened the other 5. Let them all stand open. Figure she's going to come down. She's going to see that. And she came down and she went. Now, she knew she didn't do that. My wife's cool. She just quietly shut them all. Being a jerk, problem solved. No. A few days later, some more of them are open. So I thought to myself, you know, Ray, you're being an idiot. Just close them. So I did. Blam! Blam! Cops showed up. Neighbors said somebody heard gunshots. After a couple of weeks, I thought to myself, Ray, you're an idiot. You're a jerk. You married an absolutely wonderful woman with all kinds of great qualities. As I was telling the folks a little bit earlier, my wife has made one major mistake in her life. And that was 41 years ago, and she's still paying. Here's a woman, oh, she doesn't shut cupboards. So what? And you know why we get so upset? Because here's what we do. I asked her to. You know, you'd think she'd care what I would like. I mean, I'm just asking. I'm asking nice. I mean, I don't do that to her. We take it personal. You want to get mad at your spouse? Take it personal. Okay, so he doesn't call you, and you've told him, I need you to call me. I need you to call me and tell me if you're going to be late. Okay? Okay. Yeah. And sometimes he does, sometimes he doesn't. And you're thinking, he obviously doesn't care. He doesn't care what I want. That may not be it. He could be just thoughtless. Could be a bad habit. Could be anything. But we go personal. Here's a question that'll shake you up. You don't want your spouse to answer this. But if they do answer it a certain way, you got a pretty solid marriage. Who would your spouse say that you treat the best? You? Or the people at work? Or the guys in the league? Or the people at church who think you're a living saint? because you pray the rosary in Aramaic on broken glass while you're kneeling and levitating. You're out in public, somebody comes up to you. You don't know me. I work with your husband. And I got to tell you, he's the sweetest, the kindest, the most complimentary individual. The ladies, they love him. He's always supportive. He's always uplifting, never scolding, never negative. You must have a wonderful home life. Now, if you do, you can say, yeah, that's who he is. If you don't say, well, I'm glad he treats other women better. That's nice. It makes me feel good. You know, it shows me he's capable. And you go like this, you go, oh, is this a dude right here? It's an old picture, but you can... You see, when you treat other people nicer like that, and not your own spouse, you know what you're saying? Oh, my spouse ticks me off. My spouse irritates me. You know, you live with somebody, it's harder to be nice to them. I can be nice to the mailman. He drops the mail off. I say, how you doing? He goes, hey, it's a good day, right? Yeah, it's a good day. And the mailman drives away and thinks, what a good guy he is. Or it's like the neighbor, you know, the neighbor who's just torched 5 houses, and the TV cameras come by, and the cameras are interviewing you, and you go, he seemed like such a nice man. He was. I mean, we had a barbecue last summer. He came over with 12 ears of corn, just gave them to us, always honked when I was out front. You don't know, huh? Because most people, we know this deep. And it's easy to treat people nice when you don't have to. I love people, I really do. Father, I figured this out. I love about 99.9999% of people. I got no problems with anybody in India. The folks from China, none of them have ever irritated me. All of Europe, pretty much, except maybe some of the leaders. But other than that, it's just that 6 or 7 people are kind of right in my close circle, you know, that I have the biggest trouble with. If your spouse feels like you treat them better than you treat anybody else, they're going to respond. Story is told of a church, a small country church. In the middle of the service, this hideous sulfur-smelling creature comes down. People start scattering, heading for the door, except one old farmer. He's sitting in the front pew. Creature says, you know who I am? Yep. You scared? Nope. Why? Been living with your sister for 40 years. What is the lesson here? The lesson is this: unless you live with Satan or his sister, most people respond to when you treat them better. They'll treat you better back. Maybe not as much as you want. And here's a problem too. I know some of you are in marriages where one of you takes the faith, in your opinion, a lot more serious than the other. And by the way, these are among some of the most difficult marriage cases I get, and I'll tell you why. Because the one who sees him or herself as the better Christian looks at the one who is not as holy, or not as interested in the faith, or doesn't go to church. And you know, if he would, we'd have a better marriage, because I am a Christian. Now, here's what I do that gets me in trouble. And I've had ladies crumple up checks and throw them on my desk and walk out. I ask this. So, you're definitely more involved in your faith than he is, right? Yes. So, you're a follower of Christ. I assume that, right? Yes. Now, I'm more delicate, but I got to cut it short here for here. Because they're not paying me that much. Give them what they're paying me. They're lucky they're getting verbs. Then you follow a different set of standards. The person you follow says you need to be kinder, more considerate, thoughtful, forgiving, tolerant, pleasant. He doesn't follow that person. You do. Oh, that makes people mad. They don't like to hear that because, hey, he's the problem. Don't tell me I'm the problem. I'm the good one. And I'm not arguing they're not. I'm just saying, yeah, but you see, rather than saying he needs to change, if you're the one who says, I'm a follower of Christ, then can you do better at this? And then he'll change, probably at least some level. It's kind of a rule of psychology. The best way to get somebody to change is change yourself. It's not the easiest, but it's among the best. Eric, time for a few questions?
Absolutely.
Okay, sir. Anything? Any questions? Kids, faith, stuff? Usually, yes, ma'am.
Why cannot clinical psychologists prescribe medicine?
Because we do not have a medical degree. Now, the interesting thing, the difference between a psychiatrist and a psychologist. In most states, you can call yourself a psychologist if you're licensed, and most of the time that means with a PhD. Psychologists are the ones who do testing and heavy therapy. Psychiatrists, by and large, do not do therapy. They are into medication monitoring. Their sessions tend to be much shorter, and they follow up maybe a month later. A guy like me could see somebody every week, maybe every 2 weeks, for several sessions until they get tired of paying me. Okay. It's usually the way it goes. So that's the difference. I would have to say this. Psychologists, now I'm a clinical psychologist, those are the folks who basically deal with the human condition, generally are much more in depth in seeing people and trying to peel back what's going on in their lives. Okay? Psychiatrists, partly because there aren't as many of them, and partly because they come from a different perspective, really will see you for 15 minutes. And we'll find out how the medication's working. We'll find out if there's any side effects. We'll find out if we need to tinker with it. We'll find out if we need to switch a medication. By the way, you want to hear a terrible statistic? Ooh, this is bad. 30% of adult females are on medication. That's wild. That's wild. And I think that is a reflection of our culture. We're not a contented people. The diagnosis of bipolar disorder in adolescents has exploded since 35 years ago by 11,000%. Now, you don't have bipolar disorder among adolescents at that level. You do not. Okay? And bipolar used to be a serious diagnosis. But what's happening is we're getting a lot of people who are terribly discontent. And because of that, their emotions kind of go like this. And they get misdiagnosed. It happens a lot. Those are the kind of folks I see. Situations. But I will tell you this, if you buy any of my books, I can guarantee, one, your kids or grandkids will never be on Springer. And one more question, then I want to close with something. Anything else? That's it? Yes? Best advice for newlyweds. Oh, is that sweet? Okay, so look for ways to treat the other person better. Don't be so quick to say, my wants and needs are not being met. You start doing that, then you focus on the negative stuff. You really do. And it sort of chips away at the relationship. And I told my wife, I said, honey, I can't think of anything about you that is hard to deal with. And knowing my wife, she switches it around. She goes, that's because you're so easy to deal with. You don't see it. And she goes, if you don't see it, I'm not going to tell you. I am way over-chicked. But that's really the way to look at it. How can I, you always hear, try to get your spouse to heaven. Well, that's nice. But on a day-to-day basis, you want your spouse to truly appreciate the way they're being treated. That's big. That's big. I want to close with this. Many of you have probably watched your children leave the faith. This is an epidemic. This is something that I believe has never happened before in Christian history. Typically what you were raised with, you stayed with. We live in a culture now that is seductive, morally very, very loose, if you want to use that word. Godless in a lot of ways. And it's very, very good at convincing your children as they get older that you're wrong and all those people are better and right. And your kids leave. They reject the faith, they suspect the faith, they neglect the faith. They live the way they want, they move in with their boyfriend, they just decide, I'm going to do it my way. You know, there is a God, but he thinks just like me. And you moms especially, you beat yourselves up. Where'd we go wrong? What happened? They went to Catholic school, had the sacraments, we prayed before meals, we just did all the stuff. I thought they were just absorbing the faith. I'd like to take your guilt away from you, if I could. Logically, I will take your guilt away from you. Now, you still pray for them, and you still love them. But I want to take that self-flagellation away. Please just answer yes or no. Is there a God? Yes. Christ God? Yes. Was he sinless? Yes. Could he perform miracles? Yes. Did he have a perfect understanding of human nature? Yes. Could he get most people to follow him? No. Oh, wait, I get it. See, you think you're better at this than the God-man. Can you do a miracle? Can you even do a crummy card trick? Our Lord himself couldn't get most people to follow him, folks. My 10 children are all raised now. I got some going to serve the church. I got some probably going to serve time. I got one going to Penn State, one going to State Penn. Got one going to say, I'd like to thank the Academy for this honor. I got another one going to say, I'd like to thank Your Honor for not sending me to the Academy. My wife and I will never tether our peace to the decisions our adult children make. We will not do that. I had a lady call the radio show once, and she said, I will never be happy again. I will die joyless if my children don't come back to the faith. And I said this, and I said it delicately. I said, well, you're kind of making a liar out of Jesus. How is that? This is why they don't call me back. This is why I never got dates, you know? Because Jesus said, I give you joy the world doesn't understand. And as far as I know, there's not an asterisk in our earliest manuscripts that says, unless your kids leave the faith, then you can't have joy. Huh? No. He loves them more than we do. Some of them come back, they do, and they may come back after we're gone. But you know what you did? You gave them an alternative, you see. There's some statistics out there now that saying the young people are starting to drift a little bit back toward the faith. Not in huge numbers, but in numbers. Why is this? And one of the speculations is because they see what it's like out there, they see how crazy and ugly and unsatisfying that way to live is, and they were raised with a different way. They know something about it. And maybe they'll look back on it and they'll step back on that base you laid. I got a couple kids doing that already. You know, they moved into their early 20s. It's kind of like they know better. They know better what God thinks and what God wants. And then they're realizing as life kicks them in the head that mom and pop weren't as stupid as they thought. Well, pop wasn't. Let me close with this. I do have the books available if you're at all interested. Elderly gentleman and his wife were shopping. She bends over, she picks up a can of clean peaches, she sticks it under her coat, she tries to walk out without paying. Woo! Goes before the judge. What'd you do? Stole a can of peaches. How many in a can? 12. 12 days in the county jail then. Her husband can't believe he's hearing this. This guy's a hanging judge. Your Honor, please, may I speak up for my wife? Go ahead. She also stole a can of peas. Thank you.